Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there tonight and been having yourselves a great start to your work week as we're already about midway through it. A little bit closer to that weekend. Speaking of the weekend, we have a storm system that we've already been talking about the last couple videos. Well, really the last couple days worth of videos, but this storm system this coming weekend could be a surprise snow for somebody. We don't know who, we don't know if it's going to necessarily happen, but the chances I think are steadily increasing and have been over the last 24 hours. So we're going to talk about that, but stick with me here. The first part of the video, we're going to talk about this storm that's right in front of us. We already have moisture from it, and it's its own basically upper low, cutoff low kind of system that is going to swing through the south central U.S. and get a negative tilt to it, which means it's a strengthening storm, and it's a pretty powerful storm, even though it's kind of compact. This storm is going to bring severe weather to areas of the deep south tomorrow, so we need to talk about that. And then over the next 48 hours, it's going to potentially, as we really get into Wednesday night into Thursday, and then throughout the day Thursday, maybe into Friday, it could bring a very small section of the country some pretty heavy wet snow. So we need to talk about that. We need to figure out what's going to go on with that. But of course, if you guys want to skip right on ahead to what's going on this weekend, there's a lot of people starting to get a little excited about it, but I want to let you guys, I'm not a dream crusher, guys. I'm not a hope crusher, but just beware of what you see, and more importantly, beware of what you believe, because there's a lot of people that can be really gullible when it comes to the weather and some of these bright, colorful snowfall maps that they see from some of these model runs. So just remember, they're just one model run, but I can tell you, I think somebody could get what I like to call cutoff low magic, which typically works out in very, very marginal conditions. But we'll talk about that. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. And thank y'all for the amazing support. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. It gives others an opportunity to do so too. Hit me up on Twitter, guys. Facebook, especially on Twitter. I know more people have Facebook over Twitter, but Twitter is a great way to really, really stay up to date. I'm very active on Twitter. I make a lot of updates, especially for you folks in the eastern U.S., especially in the southeast. So definitely consider doing that. So what we got going on right now, Water Vapor Loop, I think shows it about as good as you can show it. I'm going to try to get my cursor right here. We're going to open the eye right here and try to see if I can do this on the fly. So hopefully, okay, yeah, we're good. You see this right here? You see how this is kind of digging like this and it's kind of swinging through? That is our cutoff low. That is swinging through and about to move through Texas. Right now, it has a positive tilt. And I'll back this up here. Anytime you have kind of a tilt like this, that is a positive tilt. That symbolizes a weaker storm. Now, if you have a tilt like this, that is more so a neutral tilt. I know that's a crappy drawing of a kind of tilt there, but you get what I'm saying. Anytime you have kind of a trough that kind of goes like this, that is basically a negatively tilted trough. That means you have a strengthening system, and it could be small, it could be big. You know, that doesn't matter until you exactly know what's going to happen. In this case, this will be a pretty small, compact storm, but could bring some nasty weather for the deep south tomorrow. And this will continue to swing through and become negatively tilted sometime probably tomorrow into tomorrow night. So that's what's going on. That's what we're looking at. Our system this weekend hasn't really entered the West Coast yet. It will probably do so over the next 24 hours, and then we'll have better sampling of it and a better idea of what is going to happen. Let's close this for the time being. We might use this here in a second. And another way to look at this is our cutoff low right here that shows right here. This is it on the 500 millibar heights and anomalies right here. This shows us the blue, which is a low pressure, and it swings through. And look, like I said, look at the isobar shooting straight down. It becomes positively tilted, and then it becomes negatively tilted right here, which means some of the precipitation becomes very heavy. You can have storms, you can have flooding, and that's going to be the case. And then you can have heavy snow on the colder side of this low pressure, which will be the case. Normally, your dynamics start to become maxed out in these cases. And in this case, it's looking likely we're going to have two negatively tilted troughs, which means we could have two powerful systems over the next, I would say, 5 to 6 days. So what is this going to do? This little blue area, this is going to rip up some low-level moisture down here in the Gulf. Now, that is why we have a slight risk of severe thunderstorms, a level 2 out of 5, Do I expect this to upgrade to a level 3 out of 5, which is an enhanced risk? Right now, no, but I wouldn't rule anything out, especially after what we saw about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we saw that marginal risk trend to an enhanced risk within like 18 hours. So you never know. When we're watching this, slight risk, this includes not quite to Shreveport, but does include just south, all the way to just south of Memphis, the Oxford area, Jackson, Mississippi, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, everybody in between. Slight risk of severe storms. There is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles on any given location in the slight risk. That's this brown area right here, and there will be a damaging wind risk. In the 15% risk, in the yellow area, there's a 15% risk of damaging winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That's around 55 to 60 miles per hour. There will be a hail threat early on in the early storm mode where any supercells can get going. I wouldn't be surprised if a few get going, and we'll see what happens. The latest long-range HRRR model. We already have some showers, some storm activity out there in Texas tonight. This will continue, and really some of these heavier rains will move over the same areas overnight tonight. Some areas of southeast of Oklahoma and northern Texas, and then northwest and western areas of Arkansas will get some heavy rain overnight and just a drenching rain. As we're waking up tomorrow, there will be a capped air mass right in here, meaning basically there's kind of a level of unfavorable conditions in the atmosphere aloft above our heads that prevents updrafts from really getting going. So it cuts them off, chokes them out, and it just doesn't allow it. That doesn't last long. This cap erodes, and basically you will have thunderstorm development that really fires up sometime later tomorrow afternoon. And then this is the low pressure. It's beginning to deepen. It's strengthening by the hour. And as it is, it's become negatively tilted at this point tomorrow afternoon and evening. And you are going to have a line of storms that's going to develop. This is probably be more so of a linear mode, meaning a line of strong to severe storms. And this is really going to crank up as early as I would say 3 to 4 p.m. It'll really start to get going. Down here in Louisiana, please watch out. You could have a tornado threat. The thermodynamics will be better, meaning better low-level moisture, higher temperatures, things like that, better CAPE levels in response to the higher dew points. This keeps going. We get all the way out to about 6 p.m. Central Time, and this is an area of strong storms moving through Little Rock around dinner time for you folks. Low pressure, real close. It's real close by. Okay, and this is how it is with these negatively tilted troughs. Not too far away from the low pressure to the south or southeast or east, you have storms. Not too far away north to northwest of the low pressure, you could potentially have snow. This is just really how dynamic a negatively tilted system can be. The dynamics become maxed out. You could have some nasty storms down here in Louisiana around dinner time tomorrow, all of Louisiana. Then as we're getting into a little bit later, the sun has set about 8, 9 p.m. These storms will begin to make their way through eastern Arkansas, knock on the door of Memphis, maybe overnight, starting to get later into tomorrow evening around 10, 11 p.m. And then these storms beginning to become more widespread in the state of Mississippi tomorrow evening. And there's just going to be a tornado threat with any of these little storms right into here that you see. But I would say most of the day tomorrow, most of the afternoon, I mean, you could have some prefrontal storms that get going right into here. These could be dangerous right into here tomorrow. It's certainly possible. This is around 2 or 3 tomorrow afternoon. Some storms could get going, but we'll have to see how these storms trend right here in Mississippi, because they could, potentially produce a quick tornado or two. It's certainly possible. And then the main wave moves through a little bit later in the evening, like I said. So we'll get another better look at this tomorrow. The storms will continue overnight for Baton Rouge, New Orleans, the Bayou down here, southern sections of Mississippi. They'll move through Gulfport. But look at this. Look at the low pressure. It's moving on through. You're losing a little bit of forcing down here and forward motion as this low pressure ejects across the Midwest. And then look at this. Look at this heavy, wet backside snow for you folks in maybe western Missouri. These are always wild cards, guys. Somebody's going to get more snow than what they thought. Someone's not going to get as much snow as what they thought. And as I say that, we're going to switch to the winter weather side of this first system. You got winter storm watches up for these counties right here in northeast Iowa, one county in far southeast areas of southeast Minnesota, and then in the areas of southwest Wisconsin, you have winter storm watches. You see this right here? These are high wind watches. And we'll talk about that also. When you have a trough that gets negatively tilted, you normally get tightening of isobars. When that happens, you get strong winds. So I really think a big-time strong wind event. It's going to blast through the Ohio Valley a little bit later this week. We'll talk about that here in a second. There's a lot going on. I lied to you guys when I said things are going to slow down. Completely lied to you guys. It seems like every time I say that, it's like I jinx the weather. It's like, you don't know what we're going to do. And it pretty much proves me wrong. But latest HRRR, excuse me, sorry about that. Latest HRRR model for the system, it has that look, that comma head look. Getting into about 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, if you're confused with what time frame we're at, it says 3 a.m. right here. Back that up 1 hour, and we're at 2 a.m. for Central Time. Look at this. Look at this heavy precipitation moving across Missouri into Iowa, and then it switches to snow Thursday morning. And it could be nuclear snowfall rates here in northern Missouri, areas of eastern Iowa for a period of time. Look at this. I mean, there could be lightning and thunder with this. I would not be surprised one bit, guys. Low pressure shooting across Illinois, backside heavy snow, and we'll go all the way out to, we'll stop it right here. This is about as far out as it goes. This is about late morning, Thursday morning, and it is snowing like crazy for northwest Illinois, southern sections of Wisconsin, and far eastern Iowa. Snowing pretty heavily. Heavy, wet snow, paste-like snow. Not typical of what you see up here this time of the year for the northern sections of the country. But man, it's not large, right? It's not big. Milwaukee will be kind of a wild card area where, I think just north of Milwaukee and just south of Green Bay could get a lot of heavy snow. But do either city see a lot themselves? Tricky system. It really is, guys. But this is a powerful system on its own, guys. It really is. And if you look at the winds, you'll notice winds will start to kick up probably late tomorrow night. But look at this. As we're moving into Thursday morning, this is the latest HRRR model trying to depict wind gusts. It's saying 40 to 50 to almost 60 mile per hour wind gusts associated with some of these rains and even storms up here. There could be some damaging winds. It could be some damaging just winds inside just heavy rain, not necessarily storms. But man, as you move this, we'll go all the way out to about Thursday morning. Looking, Illinois, Indiana, like Indianapolis, for example, this is starting to move into Ohio. This trough is negatively tilted. The dynamics are maxed out, so you get strong winds into the Ohio Valley. Very strong winds. Even potentially some strong winds getting kicked up here in the Smokies, down here in the mountains of Tennessee, North Carolina. But this will be a high-impact wind event Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon for the Ohio Valley. So go on and get prepared for that. Some strong winds are certainly looking possible here. That's for sure. So keep moving here. We look at the snowfall potential for this first system, and several inches of snow, are possible, and basically in that area that has a winter storm watch, anywhere from 6 to 8 and maybe 9, maybe as much as 10 inches of snow. Heavy, wet, paste-like snow for these areas is going to fall. So, pause the screen right here if you want to, but this is going to be one heck of a system just itself. So, all right, so let's go on and jump to the next system. Later this week into this weekend, it's really looking like a pure weekend storm now, as it's really slowed down. So I want to go on and let you know right off the dot, what you're about to see, please do not get all wide-eyed like a deer in the headlights, okay? And just look at this and think, man, I'm set in stone that this is going to happen. And I tell like I said in the last video, tell everybody and their brother's cousin that this is what's going to happen. Please don't do that, guys. Don't do that. But here we go. We're going to get it rolling. We're going to show you everything. And then we're going to explain why it's showing what it's showing, like we always do. First system gets on out the way. Here comes the next system. It's going to be a soaker Friday. I've said that a million times. This little upper level low, this cutoff low, begins to swing through. It's still raining Saturday morning across the southeast. It is just going to be a soaker for about 48 hours straight, potentially for certain areas of the southeast. Here comes this cutoff low, or upper level low, digging, based off the latest GFS, digging deep all the way down into the deep south. When this happens, it brings its own cold air, its own dynamics, and all of a sudden you have a pace job, a heavy snow event breaking out across western North Carolina. Winter frozen precipitation. I would argue this is snow here in Virginia, because normally when you have cutoff low situations, it's either snow or rain. There's not really much in the way of any sleet or freezing rain, but there's sometimes still sleet. But anyways, we're not going to get that specific. We'll stop it here. This is late Saturday evening of this coming weekend. Look, and then we're getting to the overnight. Okay, we're going to stop it here, right here. This is Sunday morning of the 12th. It is just absolutely ripping snow based off the GFS on this run. And what happens here is this low pressure becomes negatively tilted. It starts off right here. It's positively tilted, then it's positively tilted, then neutrally tilted, then it becomes negatively tilted. It strengthens, throws back, and develops heavy precipitation back into the southeast and mid-Atlantic. And it's just cold enough due to a lot of cold air aloft that these cutoff lows bring. Cold air aloft meaning it's colder above your heads, which normally it is, than it is at the surface, but meaning it could be 35 degrees, but because it's so cold above your head, it could snow at 35, 36 degrees and cool the atmosphere aloft and then cool it to the surface and drop the temperature to maybe 33, 32, and it's snowing so hard that it's accumulating. It doesn't matter what the temperatures were a couple days prior. Now, it does matter to a degree, but if you're getting heavy enough snowfall rates, doesn't really matter. It's going to accumulate. I've seen the wild situation that happened here in the Midlands of South Carolina on November 1st in 2014 with just this epic cutoff low that swung through. And I'll never see that in my lifetime. I'll never see snow on the ground again on November 1st here in Columbia, South Carolina, Lexington, South Carolina. It was unreal. And I witnessed it. It was pretty wild. But anyways, you keep this rolling here, and this just turns into a significant snowstorm and just winter storm in general for areas of the mid-Atlantic, sections of the Triad of North Carolina, West Virginia, the mountainous regions of Virginia. This gets all the way into Washington, D.C., turns to heavy snow for Washington, D.C., hits the Delmarva area, areas of the mid-Atlantic in general as we're getting into Sunday, into overnight Sunday into Monday, and then this heads on out. Okay, and I would argue that this is probably snow up here on the I-95 corridor for early Monday morning of the 13th. So that's what the GFS shows. Shows a major winter storm. And if you go back, it shows snow as far south as upstate South Carolina. That's not a forecast, though. It's just what the GFS is showing, guys. I want you to see all solutions. Here's what the latest operational European shows. Same kind of system. Moves that first one out of the way. A lot of rain and Friday into Friday night and Saturday morning for the southeast. Here comes this low. It's not digging as far south already. So you got a little bit of snow showing up in Kentucky, the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia. And here it is. This would still be a hefty snow event for the southern Appalachian Mountains. But in general, it never gets going. It's basically, it's a system that really strengthens too far off the coastline. It doesn't strengthen like right into here. If it was to do that, it would bring a little bit more cold air aloft and we have a little bit more of something working here. But, at this point, it looks like it's positively tilted, becomes neutrally tilted right here, but then it really doesn't get strong. It's a 981 millibar low pressure at this point, sometime late Sunday night. That is a strong system, but it's still relatively weak when it has precipitation over the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic and areas of the southeast. Sometime Sunday morning or overnight, Saturday into Sunday morning. So there isn't a lot of heavy precipitation and the cold air isn't able to keep up. And I can tell you guys, this is not a favorable setup for a classic southeast winter storm, even mid-Atlantic winter storm. It isn't. This is kind of pulling a rabbit out the hat, okay, which I told you a few videos ago that I didn't believe was going to happen. Sure enough, there's the possibility of it could happen, okay? We take a look at the icon. Well, it's the icon show, which isn't, guys, necessarily the most reliable model out there. Well, gets this system neutrally, then negatively tilted right here. Pops off that low pressure, almost stalls it a little bit. It stalls it because it's a cutoff low. It's just lost outside the main flow of things that's way up here. So there's nothing to really kickstart this thing and really get it going. So it kind of meanders off the coast of North Carolina based off the icon and drops heavy wet snow Sunday morning into, during the day, Sunday afternoon for areas of North Carolina and Virginia. And now you're thinking, well, that doesn't look like a big winter storm by any means. But if this was to happen, this would be a very dynamic system. It'd be dropping a lot of heavy snow right into this region. So it's just the icon, though. So this is when your eyes are gonna be like, holy smokes, what are you showing me, Mitch? Please, when you see this, because you're seeing it right now, don't wholesale believe this is gonna happen. Don't make it this conclusion in your head that, Roanoke's going to get 14 inches of snow, or Hickory's going to get 7 inches of snow. Please, guys, don't do it to yourselves. This is one run of the GFS. Now, if we were to take this, if this was the final run, if we said, okay, maybe the GFS is on to something, this is 10-to-1 ratio. This snow would not fall at 10-to-1 ratio. This snow would fall probably at like 6-to-1, 7-to-1 ratio, meaning you basically wouldn't be getting accumulations very quickly. Even if it was snowing very heavily, you would be getting, like, the snow will be piling up pretty slow, is what I'm trying to say. Now, it could pile up fast if it's just snowing at an unreal rate, which it could be. In these setups, they can. But I would cut these totals in half, even if it was a conclusion, but it's not. But it gives you the idea of how marginal this is. See, it's just in this very small area right here. You would think, okay, well, why isn't this keeping going up to the northeast? Well, that's because all the heavier precipitation off the latest GFS is right in here, and it's just cold enough here for this to be heavy, wet snow. And then you got this weird pocket down here from this cutoff low. So don't buy the GFS, guys. It's just I'm kind of comparing and contrasting everything. I'm showing you this to show you this, which is the European for the same run. Look, it keeps all the snow in the mountains. So it really just goes to show you that you got the latest European and you got the latest GFS. The worlds apart, guys. But I can tell you, and I'll show you this in a second, if you look at the GFS ensemble, it has some pretty decent support for its operational model, just as far as accumulating snowfall. This is a pretty solid mean this far out in this range for Virginia and northern sections of North Carolina. And even if I was in Washington, D.C., the Delmarva area, just the Mid-Atlantic in general, I would keep my eyes on this, guys. Because if I had to pick one state or one area for this to really materialize for, the state would be Virginia, in my opinion. Okay, even outside the mountainous regions. So we got to see what's going to happen. The Euro will be huge tonight. But we look at this, and then we look at the European ensemble. Okay, and it actually shows it doesn't support its op. The European ensemble shows a pretty decent hit even outside the higher elevations of Virginia. I mean, it shows about almost a 2-inch mean for Washington, D.C., 1 to 2 inch mean for the Delmarva area, areas that have not seen a lot of snow. And, if you look at the European run, it shows hardly nothing. So what's driving this, guys? And this is the part where a lot of people get confused. So why is the GFS showing such a huge, like, nuclear type run, right? So this is 500 millibar energy. We talked about this a lot last winter when we had a lot more to talk about. So as you can tell, this is our second system. This is moving in. At this point, it's positively tilted, but it's quickly. See how it's got that tilt that we were just talking about at the beginning of the video? But it's quickly getting its act together. In fact, by the time you get into Friday evening, this becomes closed, meaning it's about to really strengthen. It becomes really at the low pressure at this point. It closes off over Arkansas. And then once that happens, it really starts to get a tilt to it. So by the time you get into the Saturday sometime, it has a neutral tilt to it. And it's strengthening very quickly. So once these systems begin to tilt and become neutrally tilted or negatively tilted, they begin to gain latitude, which means they start to move more so from a south to north kind of directional flow. It's kind of like with hurricanes. The stronger they are, the more latitude they want to gain. The more they want to track north in the northern hemisphere. Okay? It's the same thing with systems on land. The stronger they are, the more they are going to try to turn north. So for you folks in the mid-Atlantic, even the Northeast, if you want a winter storm out of this, you want this to really become stronger, quicker. Way out here in the deep south, dig right here, and then this will cause this to, let's see if we can do this. This will cause this to move like this, low pressure, and then all the cold air, what little bit there is, would be up here. Okay? For areas like the mid-Atlantic, maybe the southeast, well, really the mid-Atlantic, you would want to keep this kind of similar look that it has right now. Now, for you folks that are hugging the coast, you're going to need some work. You're going to need some work altogether. But for you folks like in the southeast, you're going to really need this to dig and not become so strong so fast, like the latest GFS, for example. The latest GFS for us in the southeast, really it becomes too strong too fast. So therefore it begins to cut. So it brings areas further north more frozen precipitation. Now, if you look at the run before this, it becomes negatively tilted a little bit, not as quick. Therefore, it tilts a little bit more right into here. Therefore, it takes more of a southerly track with that low pressure. I hope that makes sense, guys, but it's a really weird situation here. And, I stop it right here. And this is the latest GFS. I want to talk about soundings really quick and really just talk about how marginal this event is. I'm going to click a sounding right around Hickory, North Carolina, okay? It shows dark blue over this area, which means the GFS is trying to tell us it'll be snowing at 33 degrees. So at the surface, it's 33 degrees, a degree above freezing. This line right here where it says 0 degrees Celsius that goes all the way up here, that is the 32 degree line in Fahrenheit, and it goes higher up. So this red line right here, that is the temperature. Okay, the green line is the dew points. So don't worry about the dew points. We're not talking about that right now. The red line, as you can tell, it goes up, it climbs, but I would say a few to several thousand feet up in the atmosphere above our heads, it doesn't really get fully above 32 degrees aloft. So it looks like it drops initially, and then it climbs right in here. You see where it goes up and kind of hugs this line? And then it begins to drop again and gets well below the 32 degree line as you go way, like tens of thousands of feet up in the atmosphere. But this is that area where a warm nose likes to sit. There's not really a warm nose. So basically, several thousand feet up in the air, the temperature's hanging around 31, 32, maybe 33 degrees. So this area of warm air never fully gets above that 32 degree line. So what I'm trying to say is, with heavier rates, in this case, you would be getting heavy, wet snow. You look at sounding right here in the middle of North Carolina that shows rain, and you see it right here. It's the same temperature, right? Same temperature at the surface. Okay, but look at this air temperature. It goes well above that 32 degree, that 0 degrees Celsius line. So snowing, melts the rain, and then it stays a very cold rain because there's too much warm air aloft. That's a difference between about, I would say, 80 miles in North Carolina. So it's a dynamic system, guys. I hope that makes sense. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll try to figure this out. And more importantly, we'll try to reel it in, because for you winter weather fans, I'm pulling for you guys. I don't think there's any hope for us here in South Carolina, especially in my neck of the woods. But I think there is hope for areas in maybe North Carolina or somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. So I really think there is. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless, and have yourselves a very great evening.